investigations from the case files of Lt.Joe Kenda. First, the victim of a deadly roadside assault goes missing.
He wasn't moving at all. A lot of blood.
Well, this is different. We have a crime scene with no victim.
Because this guy died, we need to find out where he's at.
Then, when a toddler is abducted from her mother's home, it's all hands on deck.
A kidnapping is a priority 1 call for service.
Time is crucial. We knew that Monique's life was in danger.
Everyone feels the need to protect a child. Policemen are no different.
How dare you!
Who is more helpless than a child? Revenge is a very powerful motive for things, but it rarely goes the way the plan says it should. Your life will get turned upside down by somebody just like me until we get to the truth.
There's one thing that never changes: murder. A life has been taken. Their stories are now my stories. I never know where a case is going to lead, but I'll never stop until it's solved. Somebody has to look out for the victim.
If you kill, I will find you.
It's a warm summer evening, and Gary Poole is managing the store alone.
There you go.
Have a great day. Appreciate it.
I remember I had just come to work for the evening shift. I remember it being very quiet.
Are you finding everything okay?
Yes, sir. I'm just looking right now.
And then all of a sudden, someone started shooting. And this guy comes running in the door and runs back and hides in the storeroom.
Where you at, man, huh?
And then the young African-American gentleman came in the front door with the gun.
Come on and fight me like a real man.
Across town, Kenda is at home, enjoying a rare indulgence.
In most people's worlds, the weekend is the time to have a few drinks, but there is no weekend in the police business. It's every day is the same. So I would not drink very often because I was always on call. But every once in a while, I just feel like, let's have a drink.
It's Kenda.
And it's the comm center calling to report there's been a shooting. No time to relax. It's time to go to work. This particular convenience store was in a rougher part of town and was kind of known for having problems.
Okay, all right, that's right. Hey, Lieutenant, excuse me. Well, we got a weird one. Store clerk says that he hears gunshots, and then a guy bursts in carrying a gun, takes a look around, and turns around and walks right back out. But the clerk also says we have a victim with a serious injury.
What kind of injury? How serious?
Well, that's the trick. We don't have a victim.
This is kind of a bizarre situation. This is a first-degree assault. Has this guy died? We don't know.
By the time our guys got here, that guy's already gone.
No kidding.
Well, this is different. We have a crime scene with no victim. You don't see that every day.
Did you find anything in here?
Not a lot, really.
Looking around the store, there's not much to see. There's no blood, nothing out of the ordinary, just a few random items that seem to have been knocked over onto the floor by someone.
All right, let's go talk to the witness.
Just waiting outside. He's right down here.
So we get in contact with Gary Poole, the clerk.
So you were working when the incident occurred?
Yeah, I was working inside. It was pretty quiet.
Mr. Poole reports that an individual ran into the store and hid in the storeroom. Seconds later, a male came in the store with a gun in his hand, looking for this individual. Couldn't find him, and left.
And about a minute after he was gone, a third person comes in. She was looking for the first guy that came in.
Mark! Mark, where are you? Mark!
Tammy!
Mark!
Tammy, I'm back here. Tammy!
Oh, come on.
Oh, God, are you okay?
Yeah, we gotta get out of here.
Let's go.
Come on. Eric's been hit in the head with a rock. Come on, we gotta go.
God!
Wait, she said he was hit with a rock, not a bullet?
No, it was definitely a rock. Your friend looks bad.
He'll be okay.
Oh, he needs to go to the hospital.
I remember talking to her, and I said, well, if he's injured, you need to stay. And she said, no, we need to go. And they got in the car, all three of them, backed up and drove away.
Did they say why they had to leave?
No, but he looked bad. He wasn't moving at all. A lot of blood.
Head wounds, they're serious. We need to find out where he's at and what his condition is.
Did you happen to see the license plate number?
No, I'm sorry. Everything happened so fast, I didn't catch it. All I can tell you was it was a gray car.
We put that information out, and officers all over the city, if they see a gray car, they try to look at the occupants. But the odds of them finding that gray car are infinitesimally small.
Can you show us where this gray car was?
Yeah, absolutely. It's this way.
We need to examine that area to see if there's any physical evidence that might lead to the identity of our victim or to the identity of our suspects.
Yeah, it was over here, right here. Oh, come on. You've got to be kidding me. They knocked out both of my windows.
His personal vehicle is parked in front of the store, and he becomes incensed when he realizes that two of his windows are broken.
I hate this neighborhood.
I'm sorry about your car. Will you excuse us for a minute?
Yeah.
Hey, sir, will you come with me?
These look shot out to you?
Sure does.
One round passed through those windows horizontally, which means it's level when it's fired. So they're not shooting at windows, they're shooting at a person. There was automotive glass on the ground. There was no blood, no expended casings from a gun in that area of where that car was. There were a couple of landscaping rocks laying where the gray car was that probably bounced off the car itself.
The stones they use for landscaping are from our many rivers, and sometimes they can weigh up to 2, 3, 4 pounds.
These are substantial rocks. If someone hits you in the head with one of these rocks, you are going to be seriously hurt or even dead.
You have some additional information about the gray car I put the bolo out on. We now know that it's missing a window and has possible dent damage.
We now have a little more uniqueness of a gray car. So the new information is relayed so that officers can be looking for it.
Around 1 a.m., a pair of patrol officers come across a vehicle that matches the description.
Hey, is that your car?
Oh, no, not mine.
The rear window is completely gone. There's blood on the back seat near the headrest and the top cushion, and there are dents of a large nature on the trunk lid and the sides of the car.
Belongs to my friend Tammy Filcher. She lives up here.
What's your name?
Mark Sullivan.
There's always people that say there are coincidences. There's not coincidences, there's evidence. Mr. Poole, the witness, said Mark is the fellow hiding in the store from the guy with a gun, and a young female comes in and says, Mark, we gotta go. This girl is probably Tammy Felcher. Now we have a leg up on this.
What's with all the blood in the car?
Yeah, that's my friend Eric's blood. It's no big deal. He's fine.
Look, Mark, we think your friend Eric is hurt pretty bad. We need to get him some help. So I'm gonna need you to be honest with us.
Mark says, well, Eric was really drunk and he got hit in the head with a rock and he wasn't feeling good. So we dropped him off at his apartment.
He probably just needed to sleep it off.
Humans are very fragile. The human head is particularly fragile. 100 ways you can die from a blow to the head.
71. We're gonna need a wrecker, another unit at this location, please, and notify Lt. Kenda we've got his car.
So they call another car to stand by with Mark and the car itself. We have a location on Tammy, so they make contact and round her up, but we don't have Eric.
Also, advise Lt. Kenda we have an address for a welfare check.
They're on their way to go find it. It is a race. We were hopeful that when they find Eric, he's still with us and can explain what happened to him. But we're also aware that he might not be.
Police!
So we're investigating an assault that took place at a convenience store in the southeast part of the city, where both the suspects and victims have fled the scene. We now know where our probable victim is located, and we're responding to that address to find him and determine his condition.
Police! Eric, come to the door!
You got anything in the window?
Yeah, he's in there. Eric, Colorado Springs Police!
Door's locked.
He's not responding. Yeah, this is unlocked. Going in.
Right behind you, brother.
Eric!
It's a very dangerous thing for officers to do it because you don't know if this guy's going to wake up and grab a gun thinking he's being burglarized.
Eric! 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 He's hurt bad. Okay.
They've realized that he's in grave condition. He's unresponsive, his eyes are rolled back in his head. They call for medical.
334. You start me an ambulance to my location. I've got a male with a pretty bad head wound.
Concussion produces swelling of the brain. Failure to seek medical assistance can result in someone's death very easily.
I got his wallet. He's got everything in here. He's got ID, contact information. How old is he? 21. Eric. Full name's Eric Doherty. Eric.
Eric was absolutely one of the most trustworthy men that I've known. I remember going over to visit him, and he's sitting there reading the Bible.
Eric arrived in Colorado Springs from Texas. He ended up getting a job distributing coupons. Not much of a job, but just to start out with.
Wasn't somebody that would put on false airs at all. If he had enough money to pay for what he needed, he was pretty happy.
While the victim, Eric Doherty, is rushed to the hospital, Kenda and Ritz head down to the police garage to examine the car that patrol officers impounded an hour earlier.
How you doing?
Evening, Lieutenant.
And looking at the car, it matches perfectly with what our witness pool said.
Well, the only place we found any blood was there in the back seat. Whoever was sitting back there took quite a shot.
There's blood in the seat, blood on the headrest, and other dents or other rocks that we found at the crime scene have hit that car and bounced off.
Did you find any rocks inside of the vehicle? We found one rock of significant size, but we've got another lab tech taking a closer look.
What do you think?
Well, I think it's time for Mark and Tammy to start explaining all this.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
So we talked to Mark.
Have a seat.
He's still a little intoxicated, but we think he's coherent enough to carry on a conversation.
Why don't you tell us what happened tonight?
I don't know.
I always know when someone's lying to me, but what I need to know is why.
Your face is all messed up. It would be a miracle if your friend survives the night. And all you got to say is, I don't know.
Hey, Eric's okay though, right?
No, he isn't okay.
This guy is so dense, he doesn't realize how serious this is.
Look, this kid chased me with a gun and they threw rocks at the car. I don't know why.
And you guys didn't do anything to provoke him?
No.
All right, stay put. We'll be back.
People don't threaten you with guns and rocks for no reason, but fine. We still have Tammy to talk to. Maybe she can be more cooperative.
Okay, Tammy, I'd like to start at the beginning. Why don't you walk us through what happened?
Well, it all started in front of a liquor store. Mark and Eric had gone into the store, and I had stayed out in the car.
Sure you don't want it?
Okay.
Hey, yo, girl. What's up? Trying to act like she can't hear me.
And while I was out there, these three guys on bicycles showed up, and they started harassing me.
What's up, beautiful? You need to smile more.
Leave me alone. Get out of here.
Hey, I got something that'll make you smile.
And then when Mark and Eric got back in the car, I told them everything that these guys had been saying, and Mark got really, really angry.
She said that Eric had to convince Mark that they should leave the parking lot before any trouble started. So they drove around for a couple of hours, but they eventually ran into that same group in front of the convenience store. Then Tammy says the rocks start hitting the car, and that's when Eric gets hit in the head.
And she told police that one of them was wearing gray shorts and he showed them a gun.
Then she says something we didn't know.
Eric was bleeding and he asked Mark to call an ambulance, but we didn't think that'd be a good idea.
Tammy says, I told him, oh, Eric, you don't want an ambulance. They're really expensive. We'll just take you home. How helpful.
And what can you tell us about the guys that were throwing the rocks?
I don't know. I didn't really get a good look at them. I mean, they were young guys. 2 black guys, 1 white guy.
She doesn't know who they are, never seen them before.
There's just not much to work with here.
At least we know where it occurred now. Maybe someone there saw something.
Maybe.
We do have a general location. There's no indication they had a vehicle, so that's to our advantage. That shows us that maybe they live in that area, but that's still quite a lot of population there.
It's Kenda. Okay, thanks.
What is it?
The hospital. Eric Doherty passed away this afternoon.
Eric Doherty passed away as a result of a cranial bleed, so he was bleeding in the brain from the impact of the rock.
The case has now officially been elevated to a homicide, and it's all the more pressing to find someone who saw something.
You knock on a lot of doors, you drive through the neighborhood at all different hours, you spend some time looking and hoping to stumble across somebody. A lot of times you'll slip them a business card, sometimes that pays off.
Excuse me, Detective Ritz? Yeah. There's a call from John Allen on line 9 for you. He says he's got some information on the Doherty case. Really?
Now you're starting to think, ooh, maybe we have somebody who's going to give us the information we need.
Thank you.
Okay.
We're getting closer to our rock thrower. I can feel it.
Eric.
We're starting to inch forward in this investigation. We've reached a witness who says he has insider information on this case. So now the next step is to talk to him and see what he knows.
The witness is a young man named John Allen.
Lieutenant?
We're on.
He's requested that detectives meet him in a remote back alley behind an abandoned shopping center.
John Allen's concern is that he is going to be discovered as being a police informant. So we agree that he will sit in the car with us and have a discussion.
So here's the deal. Me and some of my buddies, we're riding our bikes, and we get into it with some people at a liquor store.
John explains it all started when one of his friends began making unwanted advances toward a young woman.
John Allen goes on to explain, this guy comes over to them and begins to engage in verbal confrontation.
Hey, y'all got a problem? You got a problem with something? Yeah, I got a problem. Why are you talking to her like that, huh? Talk to her if I want, man. How about you mind your business? Mark, come on, get in the car. How about you make me, huh? Come on. Yeah, let's go then. Let's get in the car, man. Come on. Wanna go? Oh! Ah! Mark, you all right? What's up? What about you, man? You want some? No, we're good. All right, then, get out of here. You all right? Let's go, man.
But that's all I saw, I swear. I didn't even know about the fight at the convenience store until the next day when one of my guys told me.
According to John, the second fight was provoked by the occupants in the gray car.
So now it becomes obvious why Tammy and Mark are so reluctant to tell the truth. They want to engage these people in yet another confrontation, and they do, and they come out on the short end of it.
And these friends of yours, what are their names?
John Allen names the individuals. A.C. Anderson is 19 years of age, and the other kid's name is Marvin Knapp, but he's a minor.
I appreciate the information.
The following morning, detectives track down both A.C. Anderson and Marvin Knapp and bring them in for questioning. They start with 17-year-old Marvin.
His mother waives his rights. Our interest, of course, is who is the one who threw the rock that killed Eric Doherty.
Come on, Marvin. Was it you or one of your buddies?
I told you. I don't know. People were screaming. I don't know what happened.
Marvin, if you're trying to protect one of your friends, man, it's not gonna
I'm not. How many times do I have to tell you? I don't know who hit the dude.
Unable to get anywhere with Marvin, Kenda and Ritz turn their attention to A.C. Anderson.
Look, I don't know what you guys are talking about. I wasn't even there.
AC denies everything. He's never been in a convenience store in his life, never been anywhere near a liquor store, never hit anybody.
We know you're lying, AC. We've got the names of everyone that was there. They've already painted a pretty clear picture about what happened.
Yeah, so what?
So we also know that somebody there was shooting a gun?
Okay, yeah, maybe I was there. But I was just shooting up in the air trying to scare those people.
Really?
The evidence at the scene says the shots were fired horizontally. You're shooting at somebody, AC. You're not shooting in the air.
Why don't you take some time and think about all this a little bit more? Maybe you need a little quiet time to reflect?
Come on. I mean, you got nothing on me. You can't keep me in here forever, man.
AC's not giving us anything. AC's got a bad attitude, which implies to me he might be responsible for throwing that fatal rock. But I have to be certain, and I'm just not there yet. I need something else.
The next day, Kenda gets the break he needs when the local DA's office receives an unexpected tip.
Have a seat.
A call came in from a witness who said, I understand you're looking for people who may have seen something. I happen to be walking in the area and witnessed the entire thing.
So I understand you know who threw the rock that killed Eric Doherty?
I don't know the guy's name, but I can tell you what he looks like, if that might help.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
For starters, he was a black dude, and he was wearing gray shorts.
We quickly determined the person that threw that rock is one AC Anderson.
Stand up, Mr. Anderson. You're under arrest. Come on, stand up. Hands behind your back.
Even without a full confession, detectives are able to piece together what happened in the parking lot of the convenience store.
This is bullshit. Come on, Mark, just let it go, all right? They gotta be around here somewhere, okay? They were riding bikes. They couldn't have gotten far.
Mark, Tammy, and Eric are cruising the neighborhood looking for these people. They pull into a convenience store, and here they are on their bikes, with the exception of John Allen.
Hot out here. Hey!
Yo, check this out.
Come here, little bitch. I'm not done with you.
The confrontation resumes, and this time it gets really ugly, really fast.
I see you came back for more, huh? Mark, enough. The fight looks fight.
But AC and Marvin have other plans.
Let's go, let's go. Come on, let's do it. Really? Oh, hey, where'd you put the rock down? Fight, huh? Mark!
Eric is in the back seat.
Come on!
He's not participating in this fight. He's the one that gets hit with a rock thrown by AC Anderson.
Are you okay? Eric,
hey,
talk to me.
You're gonna pay for that.
Eric.
Whether they know or not how badly they hurt Eric,
Oh my God, man, what did you do?
they don't care. They're just young and immature.
You're gonna pay for that, man. Oh, yeah? Hey, what you gonna do, huh? Hey, whoa, 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 whoa. Hey,
AC fires a couple of shots outside, probably trying to shoot Mark, and he misses him, but he hits the clerk's car. Mark is now terrified and runs into the store and hides from AC Anderson.
Hey, man, where you at? Come out and fight me like a real man.
AC doesn't know where Mark went, but he realizes people are looking at him, and then he realizes he has a gun. He knows he has to get out of there before the police show up.
Come on, Mark.
As AC Anderson and Marvin Knapp flee the scene, Eric Doherty begins to lose consciousness. He's in dire need of medical assistance he won't receive.
Instead of getting their friend help, Tammy and Mark dropped him at home to sleep it off, but he never woke up. There were a lot of bad decisions made that day.
As far as Marvin and AC go, both young men are indicted for their role in Eric's death.
Marvin ended up being charged with a menacing count.
But due to his young age, the charges against Marvin are eventually dropped.
When AC Anderson went to trial, he pled guilty to manslaughter, recklessly causing the death of another person. The judge sentenced him to 4 years in prison. Shortly into his sentence, AC receives what is known as judicial reconsideration. His sentence had been reduced to 5 years of supervised probation.
To those who knew Eric Doherty, the punishment pales in comparison to the young life that was taken far too soon.
This is an absolute tragedy that he was cut off that young. You know, he had his whole life ahead of him. He probably would have been, you know, godfather to my daughter. One of the, you know, nicer people I've ever known.
You have a 21-year-old losing his life over what? Over a few crude remarks and a desire to seek revenge. Revenge is a very powerful motive for things, but it rarely goes the way the plan says it should.
Coming up, when a young girl goes missing, the entire department is put on high alert.
A kidnapping with a ransom demand is a priority 1 call for service. Everything stops when that call comes in. That's about as serious as it gets.
Okay, right now we have 3 different caliber shell casings.
In homicide and major crimes, when a case is active and underway, we have lead meetings where all the detectives assigned are assembled in a room.
Our plan is to continue up the next 2 blocks.
Excuse me, Lieutenant. Oh, we got a situation. There's been a kidnapping. Unison Air responding. There's no suspects, but they're calling for us.
All right, guys, you heard them. Let's go. Tip and check out those 2 blocks. I'll meet you guys up there.
That's about as serious as it gets. Lead meeting's over. We now have a new issue. Kidnapping with a ransom demand is a very rare crime. That's why the press still talks about the Lindbergh case, which happened in 1927. It is potentially enormously dangerous.
On scene, Kenda is brought up to speed by Officer Sal Fiorillo.
Afternoon, Lieutenant.
Sal?
Well, this is the house of the kidnapped child's grandparents, Helen and Paul Inigo. Apparently, the child was abducted from the home of their daughter, Paula Inigo, who lives across town. But the grandmother's the one that called 911.
That is unusual. Why is the grandmother calling and not the mother? Is the mother in danger?
So we just sent some of our undercover team to do surveillance at the home of the mother. I'm going to change it, head over there. Hopefully we'll know more soon.
I worked undercover narcotics for 5 years. We're not going to go blazing in there without having sufficient information or intel information on who's in the house.
What do the grandparents say about all this?
Well, not much. So far, I've only got the address for the daughter and what the child looks like.
Let me talk to him, see what I can find out.
There's no time to sit down and think about this and analyze and agonize. It's go, 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 go.
Listen, I know this is extremely difficult, but I need information from you to help find your grandchild. Can you tell me your name?
Monique. She's 3 years old.
And how did you find out that Monique had been kidnapped?
Well, Paula phoned us.
Mom, I'm so scared.
Paula? What's wrong?
I don't know what to do. This guy took Monique.
What do you mean they took her?
This guy Dee's got her, and he's saying I need to give him all this money. I need your help.
They report that their daughter called them and said that someone by the name of Dee had kidnapped her child and demanded $5,000 for the child's safe return.
Do you have any idea who this Dee is?
No. All we know that Paula is very convinced that Dee will harm Monique. But she insisting on calling the police.
Well, you did the right thing by contacting us.
If you are in a police-involved matter, like a kidnapping with a ransom demand, do not believe you can resolve this on your own, because you cannot.
Can you tell me a little bit about Paula? Does she work?
She hasn't for some time. It's been a very tough time for her. She had some problems with drugs a while back, but she stopped.
And how do you know that?
Well, we talked it out together, and we believe her.
So in other words, they don't know that. We've checked Paula's criminal history to determine if there is one, and yes, there is, involving Schedule I controlled substances, which is cocaine.
And what about her personal life? Was she married?
She's divorced from a guy named Stephen Kessler.
Is that Monique's father?
Yes.
In the case of a family that's separated by whatever means, the first suspect in any situation like that is the missing mom or dad. Child custody matters can get very ugly.
Yeah, but Paula, his husband, didn't take Monique.
How can you be so sure of that?
Well, she would have recognized her voice over the phone.
Well, that still doesn't totally rule him out. I mean, he could have had someone working with him.
Paul, tell the detective the real reason.
Steve is in jail.
So Mr. Kessler is instantly removed from the suspect list. He's making license plates. He's not kidnapping babies.
Kenda wonders, is there someone else close to Paula that might be involved in this?
At the time, there was a lot of speculation that babies were being kidnapped and taken back across the border of Mexico because they could be sold for a substantial amount of money there. And so, is this a child that's been kidnapped to be used for other reasons?
Was she seen anyone recently?
She's living with a man named Amos Stone, but he seems very nice.
So there is another possibility. As a participant in this event is this boyfriend. What does he have to do with the disappearance of this child? Maybe nothing, maybe something.
I don't know what to do, Detective. If we had the $5,000 for the ransom, we'd give it to Paul in a sec, but we just don't have it.
Excuse me, Lieutenant. Officer Fiorello needs to speak with you. He's got some information and it seems urgent.
If you excuse me for a moment.
Back at the stakeout, there's been an interesting development.
I see a car pull up, somebody get out, they go in, they spend some time in there.
Lieutenant Kenda, we got a car parked in front of Paula's house, and a man has entered the home.
Did you run the plates?
Yeah, we're waiting on the results now.
Okay, I'll stand by.
We don't know who this person is, but it's certainly time to find out. Who is this dude and what's he doing there? We're investigating a report of a kidnapping with a ransom demand of a 3-year-old child. A very serious matter. We are trying to gather as much information as we can when we've determined that an unknown person has arrived at the mother's home.
Okay, Lieutenant, we got that info. The car belongs to one Elvin Peterson.
Now I'm curious, who is that person? Is that the kidnapper? Is that D?
We run the name through our record system by computers in our cars, and this person has an extensive criminal history. That's potentially very meaningful.
Okay, he's out of the house. He's heading towards his car.
Wait until he's out of sight of the house before you grab him.
Copy that. Unit 4, let's give him about a half a block and light him up. We're on our way.
We instruct those officers to stop the car when it's some distance away from the home, so that if there's anyone else in that house, they can't see the contact.
Step out of the car, keep your hands where I can see them.
What's going on?
Turn and face the car.
What did I do?
You don't have any weapons?
No.
He is terrified and confused.
You Elvin Peterson?
Yeah.
Detective Fiorello, Colorado Springs Police Department. We need to know what you were doing at that house you just left.
Basically, he says he was there to visit Amos, the boyfriend who lives with Paula. Amos wasn't there, so he sat and had a conversation with Paula.
What do you know about Monique?
The little girl? I don't know.
Do you know where she is?
She wasn't in the house when I was there.
His story was believable. Elvin didn't know anything about this kidnapping. He was there to visit Amos and Paula.
Lieutenant, I don't think he's aware of the kidnapping.
Did he say if there was anyone else in the house besides Paula?
Negative, she's all alone.
No, she's there by herself. Perfect. Now it's time to get in.
Within minutes, Kenda arrives on the scene, ready to gain entry into the home. But it's a matter that needs to be approached with caution.
I'm so nervous.
It's going to be okay.
We want Paula to open the door. We need somebody she would open the door for.
I don't know if this is a good idea. There's no telling how she's going to react when she sees you guys.
It's okay. We're right here. Just go ahead and knock.
Paula's instruction to her parents were, do not call the police, and that's precisely what they did. So we anticipate that there's going to be some difficulty.
You got the money?
No, she's got us. Go ahead and search the house.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Call the police! How dare you! How dare you!
Stay right here.
Paula immediately takes a swing at her mother, calls her names using obscenities. We have to restrain her with handcuffs because she wants to assault her mother.
House is clear.
Okay, good. Where's your boyfriend Amos? We need to talk to him.
He's not here. He's out trying to sell his car for the ransom money since my good-for-nothing parents couldn't help.
Is there any way to reach him?
He carries a pager.
Why don't you go ahead and page him, tell him to come home. Want to unhook her?
We take the handcuffs off. We don't think she's gonna beat up Mom anymore. So we ask her, Paula, of all the young mothers in this neighborhood, why is it you that Dee believes will pay $5,000 for the safe return of her child? What's going on?
I had some of Dee's drugs and the police took him.
So Paula is a user. She reveals that she had been keeping a drug supply in her house that belonged to Dee. And during a recent raid and arrest at her place, the police seized the drugs. Dee blamed her for the loss.
I couldn't make back the money and he took Monique and he's gonna hurt her if I don't get the ransom.
I'm beginning to have some major problems with Paula. My instincts tell me she's lying through her teeth. I don't believe there is a Dee. I think it's just her. She needs money for dope, and when you're a user, you will do anything to get it. Nothing is off limits.
But Kenda isn't going to let on that he believes Paula is lying. At least not yet.
They still had a child missing. And so police keep going until that child is found.
Moments later, Paula's boyfriend Amos shows up.
What's going on? Paula, I thought we decided we weren't going to call the cops.
I didn't.
Amos, we need to talk to you. Would you step in here?
We separate him from her, and he basically tells the same story that Helen, Paula's mother, told us as to what the facts are.
I was out trying to sell my car to get Monique back. I had a guy all ready to buy it, but I rushed home as soon as Paula paged me.
Just go ahead and check that out. Take him to where he lives, see if it's real.
You got it. Come on.
Lieutenant Kenda asked me to go with Amos to confirm his story. I accompany Amos to this location, and sure enough, Amos did make arrangements to sell his car.
So Amos is truthful. He is so concerned about Monique, he's willing to sell his car to pay the ransom for Paula. So Amos is out as being involved in this.
With Amos cleared, Kenda turns his attention back to Paula.
I'm gonna mess with her head until she tells me what I want to know. I want the truth. What I want is, where is Monique? And I'll do what I have to do to find the child.
Paul, I want you to come down to the station and look at a few mugshots, see if you recognize Dee. Is that all right?
I guess.
Let's go.
And we put her in a car and we drive her toward police headquarters. I want her to tell me what she's up to.
You know, Paul, I sure hope we find Monique soon. And right now, I have all my officers out there looking for her while innocent people are getting hurt.
I say to her, whose child is getting hit on a bicycle in an intersection because the policeman that was directing traffic went to look for Monique?
Come on, Paula. Please tell me where she is.
Okay. She's at a house on the south side, 19 Yellowbird Drive.
Lieutenant Kenda, we've changed the plans.
This place is in a particularly dangerous neighborhood. It's certainly not a place where a 3-year-old should be. And I called for backup, and we're going to approach this apartment with caution.
Is ready?
Yes, can I help you?
We're the CSPD. Do you have a young child inside?
Yeah, she's right here.
Do you mind if my officer steps in and talks to her?
Yeah, that's fine.
And there is Monique Kessler coloring in a color book. Looking just fine and happy and healthy, and we all breathed an enormous sigh of relief.
Hey, sweetie. It's a nice picture. So how do you know Paula?
Met her about a week ago. I don't know her that well, but she came by and asked if I could watch Monique. She said she had something to do.
My thought was, yeah, she had to invent a kidnapping with a ransom demand, but I didn't say that. I said, okay, well, thank you very much. We then called the Department of Social Services to take physical and legal custody of Monique because Paula is going to jail. She can't take care for this child. No one ever wants to tear a baby from its mother, but the safety of the child is paramount. We have no choice in the matter. What Paula did was to fuel her desire for drugs, and that is inexcusable. She has lost her privilege to parent this child.
Back at the station, Kenda reviews Paula's original arrest file.
We investigated the seizure of drugs that was made in her apartment. It was a minor amount of cocaine, normally found in the possession of a user.
To the best of our knowledge, D never existed. There was no kidnapping.
It's now clear that Paula concocted the entire kidnapping story simply to obtain money to feed her drug habit.
Paula, in her pea-sized brain, comes up with the plan to get money. What does she do? I know what I'll do. I'll take my kid over to that girl I met, and I'll just tell her to watch her for a little while. Next, the daughter says to the parents, you have to give me the money, $5,000.
But we don't have that kind of money.
When she realizes that there's no money coming from the parents, she confronts Amos and tells him this nonsense that some mysterious, nefarious drug dealer has taken this child away from her.
I need you to help me.
I'll find the money somehow.
Amos was also being extorted for money because Paula didn't care who she got it from. I need dope. And if Amos has to walk to work for the rest of his life, that's of no concern to me. The ultimate result of all this, she pled guilty to the original drug charges that were held against her, and the extortion count and child abuse account were dismissed, and she served time for the narcotics charge.
Paula was very lucky that Monique was not actually harmed. What could have been a really terrible situation, as much as it did harm others, maybe emotionally and personally, a child was found safe.
The district court judge awarded physical and legal custody of this 3-year-old girl to her grandparents, who she knew very well. The child remained out of Paula's hands and out of her custody, so she had to withdraw her application as Mother of the Year.
Financial situation after he was laid off from work. Bobby explained that Chow and Hong had run up a massive debt with Daphne, ballooning to between $250,000 and $280,000, as they continuously paid for her rituals on credit. When Daphne demanded payment, she learned about the substantial life insurance policies. According to Bobby, Daphne masterminded the entire plot to collect on the insurance. Most shocking of all, Bobby claimed that the key to the apartment had come directly from Chow Tran. Detectives were stunned by the possibility of such a deep betrayal. They turned their attention to Daphne Wright, visiting her Houston home in August of the year 2016. Daphne was a commanding presence in her household, living with her husband, Howard, and their 3 daughters, while she acknowledged knowing Chow as a client. She was cold and uncooperative regarding her financial dealings. After obtaining an arrest warrant, police searched Daphne's home and discovered ledgers detailing extraordinary fees of $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, and $40,000 for her spiritual services. Her husband maintained his wife's innocence, claiming complete ignorance of any criminal plot. In the year 2015, prosecutors subpoenaed Chow's financial records and discovered that he had purchased a new home shortly after his in-laws' deaths, while the sewing business had folded. Facing potential charges, Chow, accompanied by his attorney, agreed to cooperate in exchange for immunity. Chow painted a picture of psychological manipulation, claiming that he and his mother-in-law were terrified of Daphne's supposed spiritual powers. He even claimed that Hong had suggested sacrificing herself so the family could collect the insurance money to pay off the debt, and that Daphne had insisted both must die to cover full amount. While detectives found the idea of Hong volunteering to be killed hard to believe, they needed Chow's testimony to convict the coordinator of the crime. On the 26th of August in the year 2019, Daphne Wright's trial began. Chow took the stand, portraying Daphne as a greedy and controlling figure who held absolute sway over his family. The defense countered by pointing out that Chow had pocketed $850,000 from the insurance policies, arguing that he was a true beneficiary of the tragedy and had used the immunity deal to escape. Justice. In September the year 2019, the jury reached its verdict. Daphne Wright was convicted of capital murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Although Detective Stewart felt a lingering sense of injustice that Chow Tran walked away free, he remained steadfast in his belief that truth ultimately finds its way into the light, and that those who do wrong must eventually answer for their actions. The morning sun over Arlington, Texas, always seemed to carry a promise of warmth, casting a bright, golden glaze over the quiet suburban streets. On the 10th of June in the year 2012, the early air was particularly peaceful. Birds chirped from the branches of mature oak trees, and the gentle hum of distant highway traffic provided a familiar background melody to the neighborhood. Yet, beneath the serene facade, a family was gathering outside an apartment complex, their hearts heavy with an unspoken, growing anxiety. Chow Tran, a 38-year-old immigrant who had worked tirelessly to establish a life in this sprawling state, paced back and forth on the pavement. He clutched his mobile phone, his fingers trembling slightly as he dialed the emergency dispatch number. It was exactly 7:29 in the morning. When the dispatcher answered, Chow took a deep, shaky breath, trying to steady his voice. "Can you please send someone to check on my family?" Chow asked, his English clear but laced with an undeniable undercurrent of panic. "I need a welfare check on my elderly in-laws." "Can you give me their name, sir?" the operator replied, her tone calm and professional, designed to soothe the caller. "My father-in-law's name is Long," Chow said, spelling out the letters slowly to ensure accuracy. "Last name Nguyen. He is 70-something right now. He and my mother-in-law live here." As Chow spoke, his teenage son stood nearby, looking anxiously at the apartment door. Chow explained to the operator that his family had become deeply worried. They had knocked repeatedly, but no one had answered. Even more troubling, they had noticed that one of the windows of the residence was slightly open, a detail that felt completely wrong for a couple who valued security and order above all else. Too terrified to step inside themselves, fearing what they might discover, the family chose to wait on the curb, praying for the arrival of the authorities. Chapter 2. The Knock at the Door. Officer Weller was a seasoned member of the local police force, accustomed to the standard rhythm of early morning shifts. When a dispatch call came through, he was nearby and arrived at the apartment complex within minutes. To Weller, this did not look like a typical welfare check. Usually, such calls involved a single concerned neighbor or a distant relative. Here, an entire family stood gathered outside, their faces pale and their posture tense. The search inside. The officer walked up the concrete steps, his heavy boots echoing in the quiet morning. He knocked firmly on the door, calling out to the occupants. Silence was his only reply. With the family's permission, Weller entered the apartment through the unlocked entrance. Immediately, his law enforcement instincts put him on high alert. The living space was in complete disarray, showing the classic telltale signs of burglary or struggle. Furniture was pushed out of place. Compact discs were scattered across the floor. Drawers had been pulled open, their contents rummaged through. Weller moved cautiously through the rooms, his flashlight cutting through the dimness. "Is anyone home?" "Police department," he called out, but his voice simply bounced off the walls. He checked the kitchen, finding it empty. He searched the bathroom, finding nothing. The only room left to inspect was the master bedroom. Upon his first quick scan of the bedroom, Weller did not see anyone. The bed was empty, and the room seemed quiet. Believing that perhaps the elderly couple had simply gone out for an early morning walk to enjoy the cool air, he felt a brief wave of relief. He turned around to leave the room, his flashlight beam sweeping across the wall near a small closet. That was when he paused. On the wall, right next to the closet door, were distinct hand smudges. It was a small, seemingly insignificant detail, but Weller's experience told him to hesitate. Every instinct he possessed urged him to be careful, yet he knew his duty required him to check every corner. He reached out, grasped a handle, and slowly pulled the closet door open. A scene of deep sorrow. Inside the small closet, the search came to a tragic end. Long Nguyen and his wife, Hong Lee, were there, but they were beyond any earthly help. They had been bound tightly with duct tape, their heads and mouths covered, and they bore the unmistakable signs of severe physical assault. Weller, despite his 14 years of service, felt a wave of shock wash over him. He stepped back into the living room, momentarily unable to speak or even use his radio. After a few moments of grounding himself, Weller regained his composure. He picked up his radio and requested a supervisor and the crime scene unit. Shortly thereafter, homicide investigators, including a veteran detective with 21 years of experience in the department, arrived at the scene. The investigators quickly noted the extreme violence of the scene. It was clear that the struggle had begun right at the front entrance, with evidence of physical trauma stretching from the living room to the back closet. The detectives began to ask themselves a fundamental question that guides every such inquiry. Who could possibly harbor enough malice to commit such an act against an elderly, gentle couple who were widely loved by their neighbors? Chapter 3. Pursuing the American Dream. To understand the tragedy, one had to understand the journey of Long Nguyen and Hong Lee. In the year 2000, the couple had made the monumental decision to leave their homeland of Vietnam and immigrate to the United States. They brought with them their children, their grandchildren, and a deep appreciation for their cultural traditions. They chose Arlington, Texas, as their new home, drawn by the city's vibrant, welcoming Vietnamese-American community. Long Nguyen and Hong Lee arrived in the United States year 2000, established commercial sewing business, secured major garment contracts, e.g. Disney. The first major wave of Vietnamese immigrants had arrived in the region after 1975, following the fall of Saigon. Over the decades, the community had grown, establishing thriving businesses, temples, and cultural centers. Long and Hong saw this environment as the perfect place to build a legacy for their family. A family enterprise. In Texas, the couple established a commercial sewing business. They invited their son-in-law, Chow Tran, to help run the daily operations. Chow, who spoke excellent English, became the public face of the business, coordinating with contractors and managing logistics. For nearly a decade, their hard work paid off handsomely. They achieved a crowning milestone when they secured a lucrative contract to manufacture garments for a global entertainment giant, Disney. However, by the year 2011, their fortunes began to shift. The highly valued contract was lost, and the business began a steady, worrying decline. As financial pressures mounted, the family turned to traditional beliefs for solace and solutions. In many traditional Asian cultures, spiritual harmony is viewed as directly connected to earthly prosperity. When facing severe adversity, such as business failure or legal troubles, families often seek the guidance of a spiritual advisor to perform cleansing rituals, remove perceived curses, and restore good fortune. Chapter 4. The Search for a Spiritual Savior. Determined to reverse their string of bad luck, Chow Tran and his mother-in-law, Hong Lee, searched through local Vietnamese language newspapers. They eventually found an advertisement for a spiritual advisor located in Houston, approximately 250 miles away. The advisor, a woman named Daphne Wright, claimed she possessed a rare ability to lift negative influences and cast protective blessings. The high cost of hope. Chow traveled to Houston to meet with Daphne at her residence. Intrigued and hopeful, the family agreed to employ her services. Daphne performed various traditional rituals, and for a short time, the family felt a renewed sense of optimism. They believed that their business would soon recover and that their hardships would fade. Unfortunately, the spiritual intervention did not yield the financial recovery they desperately needed. Instead of stepping back, the family became deeper entangled, continuing to invest large sums of money into more frequent and elaborate rituals. Because they could not pay cash up front, Daphne began to extend them credit. Over the course of many months, the spiritual debt accumulated rapidly, eventually ballooning to an astronomical sum of between $250,000 and $280,000. As the debt grew, the warm relationship between the family and their spiritual advisor began to turn cold, transforming into a source of immense pressure and fear. Chapter 5: Red Herrings and Cold Trails. Back at the crime scene in June of 2012, detectives searched for clues that would explain the assault. They discovered several items that seemed designed to paint a very specific picture. A plate of crushed prescription pills lay on the coffee table. A partially consumed marijuana cigarette was left nearby. A light blue bandana was wrapped around a glass beer bottle. To the investigators, the blue bandana was a significant detail. Arlington was home to several active street gangs, some of which utilized specific colors to mark their presence or claim responsibility for criminal acts. However, the seasoned homicide detectives remained highly skeptical. To them, the scene felt almost too organized, as if someone had deliberately placed these items to mislead the police. They theorized that the gang-related evidence had been staged to cover up a much more personal motive, the question of the policy. As part of their standard procedure, investigators began interviewing family members. Chow Tran, acting as the primary spokesperson due to his language skills, met with Detective Stewart. Chow explained that the night before the discovery, the entire family had gathered to celebrate Long's birthday at a lively party. According to Chow, the elderly couple had enjoyed themselves thoroughly, leaving around 10:30 at night, when another relative gave them a ride home. Timeline of June 9th and 10th. For 30 p.m. family gathers at Chow's home for the birthday party. 10 p.m. family plays cards together. 10:30 p.m. Long and Hong receive a ride back to their apartment. 7:29 a.m. Chow Tran calls emergency dispatch for a welfare check. When asked about potential enemies or financial assets, Chow painted a picture of a modest, hard-working family with no known adversaries. However, a few days into the investigation, Detective Stewart received an unexpected phone call from an insurance company. The representative informed him that Long and Hong carried a substantial life insurance policy worth at least $1 million. When the detective inquired about the beneficiaries, he learned that Chow Tran was among those listed to receive the funds. When confronted with this information, Chow explained that the policy had been established solely to protect the family business and ensure its continuity in the event of a tragedy. Because Chow and the other family members possessed consistent, verified alibis for the night in question, and because their genetic profiles did not match the materials recovered from the apartment, the police could not establish a direct link. With no fresh leads, the case slowly went cold. For more than 2 years, the file sat on a shelf, waiting for a spark of new information. Chapter 6: The Unexpected Connection. That spark finally arrived in the year 2015, originating from an entirely unrelated and somewhat unusual incident. In Houston, a young man named Willie Guillory was arrested for a felony involving the theft of a horse. Because a felony conviction requires the submission of a person's genetic profile to the National Combined DNA Index System, Willie's biological data was entered into the database for the first time. At the time of the Arlington tragedy, in 2012, Willie had been only 16 years old, a minor with no prior adult record. which was why his genetic profile had never been cataloged. When the system ran a routine comparison, it produced a perfect match to the genetic material left on the marijuana cigarette at the crime scene. The interrogation of Willie. Detectives wasted no time. They located Willie, who was then 19, and brought him in for questioning on a parole violation. When investigators explained the scientific certainty of the genetic evidence linking him to the Arlington apartment, the young man broke down. Willie confessed that he had been present at the apartment, but he insisted he was not the mastermind. He explained that his uncle, 49-year-old Bobby Guillory, had recruited him for a job in Arlington, promising that they were simply going to perform a task to help a friend. Willie detailed how they had traveled to the apartment, using a physical key provided to them to gain entry without force. Their instructions were to make the apartment look as though it had been ransacked by a local street gang. They brought the beer bottle, the blue bandana, and the other items specifically to leave behind as a false trail. However, when the elderly couple returned home sooner than expected, the situation escalated. Willie claimed his uncle confronted the couple, using physical force to quiet them, before they were both secured in the closet. Chapter 7, The Mastermind Revealed. When detectives asked Willie why they had targeted the specific couple, the young man revealed a crucial name, Daphne Wright. He explained that Daphne was a close associate of his Uncle Bobby. According to Willie, Daphne had complained bitterly about people who owed her large sums of money, declaring that if they did not pay what they owed, she wanted them eliminated. The arrest of Bobby Guillory. In December of 2015, armed with this new information, investigators traveled to Katy, Texas, to arrest Bobby Guillory. Facing charges of capital murder, Bobby eventually chose to cooperate. He admitted his involvement, expressing deep remorse and claiming he had been driven by extreme financial desperation after losing his job. Bobby confirmed that Daphne Wright had orchestrated the entire plan, promising him a payment of $10,000 to carry out the deed. He explained that Daphne had become furious over the unpaid spiritual debt of nearly $280,000, knowing that Chow Tran and his wife stood to inherit a significant sum from the life insurance policies. Daphne had proposed a dark solution. By removing the elderly couple, the family would receive the insurance payout, allowing them to finally settle their debt with her. When investigators pressed Bobby on how he had obtained the key to the apartment, his response left them stunned. She got the key from Chow Tran. Bobby stated simply. Chapter 8, A Deal with the Devil. The revelation that Chow Tran might have been complicit in the plot to harm his own family members forced detectives to reevaluate their entire approach. They subpoenaed Chow's financial records and discovered that following the tragedy, the commercial sewing business had folded, and Chow had purchased a beautiful new home. When detectives attempted to interview Chow again, he declined to speak, directing them instead to his legal representative. The puzzle pieces fit together. To build a flawless case against Daphne Wright, the true instigator of the conspiracy, prosecutors, realized they needed first-hand testimony. They made the difficult decision to offer Chow Tran immunity from prosecution in exchange for his full, truthful testimony regarding the business dealings and the events leading up to the tragedy. The Conspiracy Web. Li au $280,000 Daphne Wright, Spiritual Advisor. Bobby Guillory, paid $10,000. Willie Guillory, accomplice. With his attorney by his side, Chow described a complex dynamic of fear and spiritual control. He claimed that he and his mother-in-law had been terrified of Daphne's purported spiritual abilities, believing that she could place a devastating curse on their descendants if they failed to pay. Chow even claimed that his mother-in-law, Hong, had suggested sacrificing herself so the family could collect the insurance money and escape the debt, a claim the investigators viewed with immense skepticism. Chapter 9, the verdict and the legacy. In August of 2019, the trial of Daphne Wright commenced. The courtroom was filled with members of the local community, eager to see justice served after years of uncertainty. Chow Tran took the stand as the state's key witness, portraying Daphne as a relentless creditor who used fear and manipulation to dominate his family. The defense's argument. The defense team launched a vigorous cross-examination, questioning Chow's credibility and pointing out that he had received complete immunity despite his close connection to the events. They argued that Chow had acted out of pure financial self-interest, noting that the substantial insurance payout had gone directly into his possession. They emphasized a complete lack of paper documentation for the alleged $280,000 debt, a community's closure. After hours of deliberation, the jury returned their verdict. Daphne Wright was found guilty of capital murder. The court sentenced her to life in prison without the possibility of parole, ensuring she would never again exert influence over others. Bobby Guillory also received a lengthy prison sentence for his role in the conspiracy. Though some investigators felt a lingering sense of disappointment that Chow Tran did not face criminal charges due to his immunity agreement, they found comfort in the knowledge that the primary instigators had been held accountable. The story of Long Nguyen and Hong Li remained a poignant reminder of the vulnerabilities faced by immigrant families striving for success in a new land. The local Arlington community continued to honor the memory of the gentle couple, remembering them not for the tragedy that took them, but for the warmth, industry, and love they had shared during their journey to fulfill their dreams. The summer sun in Texas does not rise so much as it descends, heavy and golden, pressing the humidity of the Gulf against the flat asphalt of Arlington. At 7 in the morning on the 10th of June, 2012, the air was already thick enough to taste. Chow Tran stood near the curb of the apartment complex, his hands stuffed deep into his pockets. He was 38 years old, his face mapped with the subtle lines of a man who spent his days looking at fabric under the harsh glare of sewing room lights. Behind him stood his wife and his teenage son, their silence heavier than the morning heat. Chow looked at the window of the second-floor apartment. It was open, just a crack, but in this heat, no one left a window open. His father-in-law, Long Nguyen, who was 73, and his mother-in-law, Hong Lu, who was 68, were meticulous people. They did not leave windows open to let the expensive air conditioning escape. They did not ignore the knocking of their grandson. "Go knock again, son," Chow said, his voice barely louder than the hum of the distant interstate. The boy ran up the concrete stairs, his sneakers slapping against the steps. He knocked. He called out in Vietnamese, "Grandpa? Grandma?" There was no sound from within, only the drone of the air conditioning unit from the neighboring apartment. Chow took his phone from his pocket. His hands were shaking, not with the cold, but with a sudden, icy certainty that the world they had built since arriving in America in the year 2000 was about to split along its seams. He dialed the non-emergency number first. Then, with a throat dry as paper, he asked for a welfare check. "Can you give me their names?" the dispatcher asked, her voice calm, a sharp contrast to the rising heat in Chow's chest. "My dad's name is Long," Chow said, spelling out slowly, his English careful and deliberate. "L-U-N-G, last name Nguyen. N-G-Y-N. He is 70-something right now. My mother-in-law, Hong Lu." They are not answering. Within 10 minutes, the white and blue patrol car of the Arlington Police Department pulled into the gravel lot. Officer Weller, a veteran patrolman with 14 years on the force, stepped out. He saw the family gathered by the stairs, not the usual scene of a welfare check where a distant relative calls from another state, but an entire family unit standing in the driveway, too terrified to cross their own threshold. They saw the window open, Chow told the officer, pointing upward. "Everything inside looks down, fallen down." Weller nodded, his hand resting instinctively near his utility belt. "Stay here," he said. The wooden door of the apartment was unlocked. It yielded to a soft push, swinging open to reveal a living room that looked as though a small, violent storm had passed through it. Compact discs were scattered across the carpet, like spilled coins. A small table was overturned. "Arlington Police. Anyone inside?" Weller called out. Silence. He moved through the kitchen. The sink was dry. He checked the bathroom. Empty. The only room remaining was the master bedroom at the end of the short hallway. Weller stepped inside the bedroom. At first glance, it appeared empty. The bed was unmade, the sheets tangled. He turned to leave, his flashlight beam sweeping across the wall near a small closet. He froze. On the drywall, right next to the closet door frame, were dark, smudged handprints. They were not the casual marks of someone leaning against the wall. They were the desperate, sliding prints of someone trying to hold onto the world as they were dragged away. Weller's heart hammered against his ribs. Every instinct honed over nearly a decade and a half told him that what lay behind that closet door would change the shape of his day and perhaps his career. He reached out, his fingers wrapping around the brass knob. He pulled it open. Chapter 2, The Calling Card. Inside the small closet, wedged beneath hanging coats that still smelled of traditional Vietnamese mothballs and laundry, detergent, were Long Nguyen and Hong Lu. They were bound hand and foot with heavy silver duct tape, their limbs secure behind them in a cruel, tight binding. Their heads were wrapped entirely in the same silver tape, covering their eyes, their noses, their mouths. Weller did not need to check for pulses. The stillness in the closet was absolute. There was blood on the walls, blood on the floor, and the unmistakable scent of a life violently extinguished. He backed out of the room, his breath coming in short, shallow gasps. For a moment, his hand hovered over his radio, but his throat had closed up. He walked all the way back to the living room, standing in the center of the disordered space. Before he could find his voice, "Dispatch! This is Unit 3-4, he said, his voice cracking slightly. "I need a supervisor and a homicide unit at this location. We have a double." Within 45 minutes, the quiet residential street was blocked by yellow tape. Detective Stewart, a 21-year veteran of the Arlington Homicide Squad, arrived with his notepad in hand. He had seen the aftermath of robberies, domestic disputes, and gang warfare, but when he stepped into the bedroom closet, he felt a cold chill despite the 90-degree heat. "This is personal," Stewart muttered to his partner as they stood over the scene. "Or it's meant to look that way." The medical examiner would later note that Long's face had been wrapped in 10 feet of duct tape. Hong's face had been wrapped in 25 feet. They had not died from the blunt force trauma to their heads, though there were severe lacerations that suggested the use of a hammer or a small bat. They had died because they could not breathe. As the crime scene technicians began their slow, meticulous work, they discovered several items that seemed out of place. On the coffee table in the living room lay a small plate containing crushed blue pills, arranged as if someone had intended to inhale them. Next it was a half-burned marijuana cigarette. But the most striking piece of evidence was a glass beer bottle sitting on the kitchen counter. Wrapped around its neck was a light blue bandana, knotted tightly. The local gang unit says light blue is the color of one of the active Vietnamese crews in the area. Stewart's partner said, pointing at the bottle, "They're known for home invasions, extortion, targeting older immigrants who keep cash in the house." "Maybe," Stewart said, his eyes narrowing as he looked at the scattered CDs on the floor. "But look at this." They knocked over the CD rack. But they left the television. They left the stereo. They tore up the room. "But it looks convenient, like someone wanted us to see a robbery." "You think it's staged?" "I think we don't rule anything out," Stewart said. "Let's talk to the family." Chapter 3, The Thread from Houston. Chow Tran sat in the interview room at the Arlington police station. He was the only member of the family whose English was fluent enough to speak without an interpreter. He explained to Detective Stewart how his father-in-law had celebrated his birthday the night before. "We had a party," Chow said, his eyes red-rimmed. "Everyone was there. We ate. We played cards until 10 o'clock. Then my cousin drove them home. They were happy. They had no enemies." "Did they keep money in the house, Chow?" Stewart asked. "We know many families in the community prefer to keep cash at home rather than in the banks." "No," Chow said, shaking his head. "We have no money. The business, it has been very bad." He went on to explain that after nearly 10 years of hard work, their commercial sewing business, which once held a prestigious contract with a major entertainment company to sew children's costumes, had lost its primary client in the year 2011. The factory was silent most days. The bills were piling up. "In our culture," Chow explained, his voice falling to a whisper, "when everything goes wrong at once, we believe there's a curse, a bad spirit. My mother-in-law, she believed this very strongly. She found an advertisement in the Vietnamese newspaper, a woman in Houston, a spiritual advisor." "A spiritual advisor?" Stewart asked, leaning forward. "Yes, her name is Daphne. Daphne Wright. She said she could lift the curse. She said she could bring the good fortune back to our business." Chow described how he and his mother-in-law had driven 250 miles to Houston to meet. With Daphne, she lived in a comfortable home, surrounded by the trappings of a successful business. She had performed a ritual, burning incense and reciting prayers, promising that the sewing business would soon see a grand revival. But the revival never came. Instead, the debt grew. "How much did you pay her, Chow?" Chow looked down at his hands, his fingers twisting together. "At first, a few thousand, but then she said the curse was very deep. She needed to do more rituals. She said we could pay her later on credit, but then the bill became very big." "How big?" $250,000, Chow whispered. "Maybe more. 280,000. Stewart stared at him. $280,000 for spiritual advice? "She told us if we did not pay," Chow said, his eyes wide with an old, deep-seated terror, "the spirits would take everything. She said she would put a curse on us that we could never escape." Chapter 4. The Cold Years. For more than 2 years, the investigation into the murders of Long Nguyen and Hong Lu went cold. The DNA recovered from a marijuana cigarette left at the scene did not match anyone in the national database. The blue bandana led to several dead ends. Local gang members denied any involvement, and their alibis held up under scrutiny. The fingerprints on the beer bottle were smudge-marked and unusable. Chow Tran stopped returning Detective Stewart's phone calls. When the detective tried to visit the family home, he was met by a lawyer who politely but firmly informed him that Chow would no longer speak to the police without representation. "He's hiding something," Stewart's partner said as they looked at the whiteboard in the homicide office, where the victims' photos had sat since 2012. "But we don't have enough to connect him to the crime scene. His alibi for the night of the murder is solid. He was at his own house with 10 other people." "And the business?" Stewart asked. "Folded," his partner replied. "But here's the interesting part. A few months after the murders, Chow and his wife collected on 2 life insurance policies, $1 million total. They bought a new house in a nice neighborhood. They didn't reopen the sewing shop. And Daphne, right? Still in Houston, still advertising in the local papers, still taking clients. The case might have remained on the shelf forever if not for a horse. In October of the year 2015, a young man named Willie Guillory was arrested in Houston for the theft of a horse, a felony offense. In the state of Texas, because it was a felony conviction, the law required Willie, who had just turned 19, to submit a DNA sample to the state database. Within 48 hours of his arrest, a computer in Austin flagged a match. The DNA from a teenager who had stolen a horse in Houston matched the DNA found on a half-burned marijuana cigarette left on the coffee table of Long Nguyen and Hong Lu 3 years earlier. "We've got him," Stewart said, grabbing his jacket from the back of his chair. "Let's go to Houston." Chapter 5, The Confession of a Nephew. Willie Guillory did not look like a hardened gang member. When Detective Stewart sat across from him in the interrogation room, the 19-year-old was shivering despite his heavy jacket. "I was in Arlington," Willie said, his voice high and nervous. "I don't know nothing about no old people." "Willie," Stewart said, laying a color photograph of the marijuana cigarette on the table, "your DNA is on this. It was found next to 2 people who were beaten and suffocated to death. You were 16 years old when this happened. If you don't talk to us, you're going to face the needle." The young man stared at the photograph. His eyes filled with tears, and he began to shake. "It was my uncle," Willie sobbed, burying his face in his hands. "My Uncle Bobby. He told me we had to go do a job up in Arlington. He said we were just going to scare some people who owed money to his friend." Willie described how his uncle, Bobby Guillory, had driven him 3 hours north to Arlington on the night of June 9th, 2012. Bobby had a key to the apartment. "We went in before they got home," Willie said. "Bobby had all this stuff. He had the blue bandana, the beer bottle, the pills. He told me to throw the CDs on the floor. Make it look like some gang did it. He told me to smoke some of the weed and leave it there. And when the couple came home," Stewart asked, "they walked in, and Bobby jumped them," Willie said, his voice trembling. "The lady tried to run, but I grabbed her. Bobby hit the man with a bat. Then he told me to help him tape them up. We put them in the closet. I didn't know they were going to die. Man, I thought we were just leaving them there." "Who gave your uncle the key, Willie?" "Daphne," the boy whispered. "The lady in Houston. My uncle went to her office, and she told him these people owed her money. She said if they didn't pay up, she wanted them dead. She gave him $10,000 to do it." Chapter 6, The Shadow of the Mastermind. The arrest of Bobby Guillory took place in Katy, Texas, on a rainy afternoon in December of 2015. Bobby, a 52-year-old man with no prior criminal record, did not offer any resistance. When presented with his nephew's confession and the search warrant for his own DNA, Bobby broke down. "I was so desperate," Bobby said, his tears falling onto the metal table of the interview room. "I'd been laid off. I didn't want to be on the street. Daphne, she knew I needed the money. She told me it was simple. She gave me the key. She told me exactly how to make it look like a gang. Robbery." "Where did Daphne get the key, Bobby?" Stewart asked. "She got it from the son-in-law." Bobby said, "Chow. He's the one who gave it to her." The revelation was like a sudden gust of wind that clears the fog from a dark road. The pieces of the puzzle, scattered for 3 years, fell into place with a terrifying precision. On the 31st of August, 2016, the police executed a search warrant at the home of Daphne Wright in Houston. Inside her office, investigators found a leather-bound ledger. The ledger was a catalog of belief and desperation. It listed dozens of names from the local Vietnamese community, with numbers written next to them. $10,000, $20,000, $40,000. Next to the names of Hong Lu and Chow Tran, the numbers were much larger, reaching nearly $300,000. The prosecution offered Chow Tran a deal. In exchange for his full, honest testimony against Daphne Wright and Bobby Guillory, he would receive immunity from prosecution. "We needed the puppet master," the district attorney would later explain. "Without Chow's testimony, we couldn't prove that Daphne was the one who ordered the hit. We had to make a deal with the devil to catch the hand that held the strings." During the trial in August of 2019, Chow Tran took the stand. He described how Daphne had used her spiritual influence to dominate his family's life. She told my mother-in-law that the spirits demanded a sacrifice. Chow testified, his voice flat, almost devoid of emotion. She said if we could not pay the debt, my mother-in-law should offer herself so we could collect the insurance money and pay her. My mother-in-law agreed. She wanted to save the family from the curse. The defense attorney pointed at Chow, his voice ringing through the courtroom. You wanted the money. You let these men into your parents' home. You gave them the key, and you sat in your house playing cards while they died. I was under her power, Chow whispered. She controlled my mind. The jury did not believe Chow's claims of spiritual control, but their mandate was to judge Daphne right. On the 1st of September 2019, Daphne was found guilty of capital murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Bobby Guillory received the same sentence. Willie Guillory, who had cooperated with the state, was sentenced to 20 years. Chow Tran walked out of the courtroom a free man, though he carried a debt that no ledger could ever record. Detective Stewart stood on the steps of the courthouse, watching the summer rain wash over the pavement. It will never sit well with me that Chow is not in prison, Stewart said to his partner as they walked back to their car. But the truth has its own way of catching up. What is done in the dark always finds a light. The morning sun over Arlington, Texas, usually brings a warm, golden glow that promises new beginnings. On the 10th of June, 2012, at exactly 7:29 in the morning, the peaceful silence of the early hours was broken by a call to emergency dispatchers. The voice on the other end belonged to Chow Tran, a 38-year-old Vietnamese immigrant. His tone was a mixture of worry and hesitation as he requested a welfare check on his elderly in-laws, Long Nguyen and Hong Lu. The dispatcher, trying to gather the necessary details, asked for the names of the family members in question. Chow explained that his father-in-law was named Long, spelling it out carefully, and his last name was Nguyen, also spelling it out. He mentioned that his father-in-law was 70-something years old. Chow explained that his son and his wife had gone to the residence to check on them. They had looked through a window and noticed that things inside had fallen down, suggesting that something was terribly wrong. The responding officers were dispatched immediately. Among them was Officer Weller, a dedicated professional who had seen many things in his career, but was unprepared for what lay ahead when he arrived at the apartment complex. He noticed a large group of family members standing outside. It was unusually early for a welfare check, and the sheer number of concerned relatives gathering on the pavement indicated that this was no ordinary Sunday morning. The family explained that they were too terrified to enter the home themselves. They had noticed that a window to the residence was wide open and that the interior appeared in complete disarray. Officer Weller, holding his flashlight, stepped through the entrance to perform his duty. Chapter 2, The Discovery. Upon entering the apartment, the signs of disturbance were immediately clear. The living room was in complete disarray, resembling a burglary. The kitchen and bathroom were empty, leaving only the master bedroom unchecked. Officer Weller walked into the bedroom. At first glance, the room appeared empty, and he began to feel a sense of relief, hoping the elderly couple had simply gone out for an early morning walk. However, as he turned to leave, his flashlight caught hand smudges on the wall next to a very small closet. An instinctual hesitation came over him. Every feeling inside told him that opening that door would change everything, yet his duty required him to check every corner. He slowly opened the closet door. Inside the small space, he discovered the elderly couple. They were hog-tied with duct tape, which also covered their heads and mouths. There was blood indicating a violent struggle. Officer Weller, a veteran with 14 years of experience, was momentarily frozen in shock. He walked out of the bedroom into the middle of the living room, unable to speak or use his radio immediately. Once he gathered his composure, he requested a supervisor and a crime scene unit. Chapter 3. The investigation begins. When the Arlington homicide investigators arrived, they were deeply saddened by the scene. Detective Stewart, a veteran with 21 years in homicide, noted that this was one of the most violent scenes he had encountered. The physical evidence suggested the victims had been beaten with a blunt object before being placed in the closet. Initially, the scene suggested a robbery gone wrong. There was evidence of ransacking, with items like compact discs scattered across the floor. However, certain elements seemed unusual for a typical burglary. On the coffee table, investigators found a plate of crushed prescription pills and a marijuana cigarette. Most notably, a light blue bandana was wrapped around a beer bottle, placed almost like a calling card. In Arlington, there were active youth groups and gangs known to use specific colors. The light blue bandana suggested potential gang activity, but the extreme violence against an elderly couple did not align with typical local gang behavior. Long Nguyen and Hong Lu had immigrated to the United States from Vietnam in the year 2000. Seeking the American dream, they settled in Arlington, a vibrant city in Tarrant County, with a supportive and large Vietnamese community. The community had grown significantly since 1975, with many families establishing successful businesses and maintaining their cultural heritage. The couple had started a commercial sewing business, enlisting the help of their son-in-law, Chow, who spoke English well and managed relations with contractors. For nearly a decade, the business thrived, even securing contracts with major corporations, including Disney. However, by 2011, the business faced financial difficulties after losing these key contracts. Chapter 4. Spiritual Searches and Hidden Debts. In times of great difficulty, the family turned to traditional beliefs to seek guidance and find a way forward. In Vietnamese culture, many families hold deep respect for spiritual advisors who offer guidance during major life challenges such as financial distress or family disharmony. Searching through a local Vietnamese newspaper, Chow and his mother-in-law, Hong, found an advertisement for a spiritual advisor located 250 miles away in Houston. The advisor, Daphne Wright, advertised services to remove negative curses and bring good fortune. Hoping to restore their business, Chow contacted Daphne and arranged a meeting at her Houston home. She performed a traditional ritual, giving the family hope that their fortunes would improve. However, as the business continued to struggle, the family became deeply indebted to her. Daphne began providing her services on credit, and over time, the debt ballooned to an amount between $250,000 and $280,000. As the pressure to pay increased, the family found themselves in a difficult position. Chapter 5. Unraveling the Truth. On the 11th of June, 2012, the medical examiner confirmed that the cause of death for both victims was suffocation due to the extensive duct tape wrapped around their faces. This finding confirmed that the perpetrators intended to cause serious harm, ruling out a simple robbery. Shortly after, Detective Stewart received a call from an insurance company. It was revealed that the victims carried life insurance policies totaling $1 million, with Chow Tran named as a beneficiary. When questioned, Chow explained that the policies were intended to ensure the continuity of the family's sewing business in the event of a tragedy. He provided a clear alibi, explaining that the family had been celebrating his father-in-law's birthday until late the previous evening. With no immediate matches for the DNA found on the marijuana cigarette at the scene, the case remained unresolved for 3 years. Then, in 2015, a breakthrough occurred. A young man named Willie Guillory was arrested for a felony in Houston. Because he had reached adulthood and was convicted of felony, his DNA profile was entered into the national database. The system identified a match between Willie's DNA and the evidence recovered from the apartment in 2012. At the time of the offense, Willie was only 16 years old. which is why his profile had not been in the system earlier. Chapter 6, The Confession. When questioned by investigators, Willie became emotional and confessed to his involvement. He explained that his uncle, Bobby Guillory, had asked him to help with a task in Arlington. On the 9th of June, 2012, they made the 3-hour drive from Houston. Willie stated that they had been given a key to the apartment to stage a burglary. They placed the beer bottle, the blue bandana, the pills, and the marijuana cigarette to make it look like a gang-related incident. He explained that once the couple returned home, Bobby confronted them, and they subsequently secured them in a closet. Willie revealed that the entire plan was organized by Daphne Wright, who wanted to collect on the family's debt. He stated that Daphne had told Bobby she wanted the couple gone if the debt was not paid, promising Bobby $10,000 for his assistance. Bobby Guillory was arrested on the 16th of December, 2015. He also confessed, confirming that Daphne was the organizer of the plan. He claimed that Daphne had obtained the apartment key directly from Chow Tran. Chapter 7, Justice and Resolution. Investigators arrested Daphne Wright at her Houston home. A search of her residence revealed detailed ledgers showing that she charged substantial fees, ranging from $10,000 to $40,000 for her spiritual services. Chow Tran, facing significant evidence of his involvement, agreed to cooperate with the prosecution in exchange for immunity. He testified that the family felt immense pressure to pay Daphne, believing she possessed powerful spiritual influence over their lives. He claimed his mother-in-law had suggested sacrificing herself so the family could collect the insurance money to pay the debt, though investigators remained skeptical of this explanation. On the 26th of August, 2019, Daphne Wright's trial began. Chow's testimony described her as a demanding individual who insisted on payment. The defense argued that Chow was the primary beneficiary of the insurance payout and questioned his credibility. In September 2019, the jury found Daphne Wright guilty of capital murder. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Bobby and Willie Guillory also faced legal consequences for their roles in the tragedy. The resolve of the investigators and the strength of the community ultimately brought the truth to light, ensuring that those who sought to exploit others were held accountable, leaving a lasting lesson about the values of honesty, family support, and the pursuit of true justice. The morning sun over Arlington, Texas, usually brought a warm, golden glow that painted the wide streets and cozy apartment complexes in shades of amber and promise. It was the 10th of June in the year 2012, a season when the summer heat was just beginning to settle over the plains of Tarrant County. For years, the city had been a sanctuary of hope, a place where families from all corners of the world came to weave their own unique threads into the grand tapestry of the American dream. Among them was a vibrant, close-knit Vietnamese community that had flourished since the late 20th century, bringing with them a rich heritage of resilience, deep-rooted traditions, and an unshakable belief in the power of hard work and family unity. On this particular Sunday morning, at exactly 7:29, the peaceful atmosphere of the neighborhood was gently interrupted by a call to the emergency. Dispatchers. The caller was 38-year-old Chow Tran, a Vietnamese immigrant who worked closely with his family. His voice, though carrying the soft, hurried cadence of someone deeply worried, was polite as he requested a welfare check on his elderly in-laws, Long Nguyen and Hong Lee. He explained to the operator that his father-in-law was in his 70s and that the family had gathered outside the apartment because things simply did not feel right. The windows to the residence were unusually open, and a quiet, heavy stillness hung over the home that normally bustled with the sounds of morning tea and family chatter. Too anxious to enter the home themselves, the family waited on the sidewalk, their hearts heavy with a quiet apprehension. Soon, the familiar blue lights of an Arlington police cruiser glided to a stop near the curb. Officer Weller, a dedicated officer with 14 years of experience, stepped out of his vehicle. He noted immediately that this was not a typical welfare check. Usually, such requests came from distant relatives or neighbors who had not seen someone for days. Here, an entire family stood together in the early morning light, their faces etched with a mixture of hope and fear. Officer Weller greeted the family warmly, offering a reassuring smile before heading up the steps to the apartment. He knocked firmly, calling out into quiet air, but only silence responded. Stepping through the entrance, his eyes scanned the rooms. At first glance, the apartment appeared to be in disarray, with items scattered as if a hurried search had taken place. There was a strange mix of household items out of place, but the officer remained focused on his primary mission, finding the sweet elderly couple and ensuring they were safe and sound. He checked the living room, the kitchen, and the small bathroom. Finding them empty, he moved toward the master bedroom. Under the morning light filtering through the window, the room seemed quiet. Believing for a brief moment that perhaps the couple had simply gone for an early morning walk to enjoy the cool breeze, Weller turned to leave. But as he did, his flashlight caught faint smudges on the wall adjacent to a small closet. A quiet instinct, honed by over a decade of service, urged him to pause. With a gentle hand, he opened the closet door. In that quiet, cramped space, the devastating reality unfolded. The elderly couple, Long and Hong, were gone. They had been bound securely with heavy duct tape, their heads wrapped in a way that spoke of an unimaginable, silent struggle. There were clear signs of a violent encounter. Weller felt a profound wave of shock wash over him. For a moment, the veteran officer stood in absolute silence, unable to speak or even reach for his radio. The sheer contrast between the peaceful, gentle lives this couple had lived and the gravity of their end was deeply moving. When he finally gathered his thoughts, Weller stepped back into the living room and called for his supervisor and the homicide unit. Within an hour, Detective Stewart, a veteran investigator with 21 years of experience in solving the city's most complex mysteries, arrived at the scene. Stewart had seen many things in his long career, but this particular scene touched a deep chord of sorrow and determination within him. The victims were gentle, harmless souls who were deeply loved by everyone in their neighborhood. As the forensic team began their meticulous work, they discovered several unusual details scattered around the apartment. On the coffee table lay a plate with crushed prescription pills and a discarded marijuana cigarette. More peculiar still was a light blue bandana wrapped carefully around a beer bottle, left in a prominent position as if it were a deliberate calling card. To an outsider, these clues strongly suggested the work of local street gangs, which were known to occasionally operate in the wider county. However, Detective Stewart and his team possessed a deep understanding of human behavior and criminal patterns. The scene felt almost too orchestrated, as if someone had read a manual on how to make a crime look like a random burglary gone wrong. Most street gangs did not leave such perfectly curated evidence, nor did they typically target elderly couples in such a highly personal, intensely violent manner. The extensive use of duct tape, 10 feet wrapped around Long and 25 feet around Hong, indicated a dark, deliberate intent to ensure they could not speak or survive. It was not a simple robbery. It was a targeted act. To understand why anyone would wish harm upon such a beloved couple, the detectives began to immerse themselves in the history of Long Nguyen and Hong Lee. The couple had immigrated to the United States from Vietnam in the year 2000, bringing with them their 3 children and a heart full of dreams. They settled in Arlington, a city known for its welcoming spirit and thriving Vietnamese community, which had grown beautifully since the mid-70s. Long and Hong were industrious and visionary. They established a commercial sewing business, pouring their hearts into crafting quality garments. To help bridge the language barrier and manage daily operations, they enlisted their son-in-law, Chow Tran, who spoke fluent English and became the welcoming face of the business. For nearly a decade, their dedication paid off handsomely. They secured prestigious, lucrative contracts with major commercial giants, including global entertainment brands like Disney. They were living the true American dream, providing a beautiful legacy for their children and grandchildren. Yet, as is sometimes the case with business, the tides of fortune began to shift. By the year 2011, the sewing business faced severe setbacks, ultimately losing its major contracts. As financial pressures mounted, the family felt a deep sense of worry. In many traditional Asian cultures, when faced with sudden, inexplicable misfortune or impending ruin, it is common to seek spiritual guidance. For thousands of years, people have believed in lucky gods and spiritual protectors who can help restore balance, peace, and prosperity to a home, hoping to lift what they believe to be a spiritual cloud over their business. Hong Lee and her son-in-law, Chow, searched through a local Vietnamese newspaper. There, they found an advertisement for a spiritual advisor named Daphne Wright, who operated out of Houston, some 250 miles away. The advertisement claimed that Daphne possessed a unique ability to remove powerful curses and bestow blessings of good fortune upon struggling businesses and families. Desperate to save the family legacy, Chow contacted Daphne and traveled to Houston for a consultation. Daphne performed an elaborate ritual, promising that their fortunes would soon turn around. The family felt a renewed sense of hope, believing that their hard work would once again bear fruit. However, behind the facade of spiritual healing lay a web of financial exploitation. Over the course of a year, instead of delivering the promised miracles, Daphne began to charge exorbitant fees for her services. Because the business continued to struggle, the family fell deeper into debt, not to traditional banks, but to Daphne herself. She began running their accounts on credit, and the outstanding balance quickly ballooned to an astronomical sum between $250,000 and $280,000. Unbeknownst to the family, Daphne was not a spiritual savior, but a predatory figure who expected every single penny to be paid, regardless of the family's financial ruin. As the investigation in 2012 continued, Detective Stewart received a routine call from an insurance company that instantly shifted the focus of the case. It turned out that Long and Hong had a substantial life insurance policy worth at least $1 million, and one of the primary beneficiaries was none other than Chow Tran himself. When questioned about this, Chow explained calmly that the policy was designed to ensure the sewing business could survive and support the family if either of the elders passed away. Furthermore, Chow and the rest of his family provided airtight alibis for the night of the incident, demonstrating they were all attending a family birthday party and playing cards until late in the evening. With no direct evidence linking Chow or any known suspects to crime, the case slowly began to grow cold. The DNA collected from the marijuana cigarette and the fingerprints on the duct tape did not match any profiles in the national database, which at the time did not include minors or individuals without felony records. For 2 long years, the memory of Long and Hong was kept alive only by the dedicated detectives who refused to let the case be forgotten. Then, in the autumn of the year 2015, a sudden spark of justice illuminated the darkness. A young man named Willie Guillory was arrested in Houston for an unrelated felony involving the theft of a horse. Because he was now an adult facing a felony charge, his DNA profile was entered into the national database. Within days, the system flagged a perfect match. Willie's DNA matched the biological material left on the marijuana cigarette at the crime scene in Arlington from 2012. When detectives brought the 19-year-old Willie in for questioning, they did not mention the murders immediately. Instead, they focused on his parole violations. When confronted with the scientific certainty of his DNA being present inside the apartment where the elderly couple lost their lives, Willie broke down in tears. He confessed his involvement, but insisted he was merely a pawn. He revealed that when he was 16 years old, his uncle, Bobby Guillory, had recruited him for a job in Arlington. Willie explained that on the 9th of June, 2012, they had driven to the apartment complex. His uncle possessed a key to the residence, which allowed them to enter easily and staged the scene to look like a random gang burglary. They scattered items, left the blue bandana and the beer bottle, and waited. When the sweet couple returned home, a struggle ensued. Bobby used a blunt object to subdue them, and together they bound the couple with duct tape before placing them in the closet. When asked why they would commit such a terrible act, Willie pointed directly to a woman named Daphne Wright, a friend of his uncle. Willie recounted that Daphne had approached his uncle, claiming that some people owed her a massive debt, and that if they did not pay, she wanted them gone. She had promised Bobby $10,000 to carry out the deed. With this breakthrough, the police quickly moved to arrest 52-year-old Bobby Guillory at his home in Katy, Texas. Faced with the reality of the evidence, Bobby also confessed, expressing deep remorse and confirming that Daphne Wright was indeed the mastermind who had organized the entire plot. He admitted that Daphne had given him the key to the apartment, claiming she had received it directly from Chow Tran. The revelation of this deep family betrayal sent shockwaves through the investigative team. Detectives traveled to Houston to arrest Daphne Wright. A search of her home revealed detailed ledgers outlining the massive sums she charged her clients for spiritual services, confirming the existence of the nearly $300,000 debt. To secure a conviction against the mastermind, prosecutors made a difficult decision to offer Chow Tran immunity in exchange for his full, truthful testimony. During the emotional trial in August of the year 2019, Chow took the stand. He painted a vivid picture of Daphne as a manipulative, greedy figure who exerted an intense psychological hold over his family, leading them to believe she possessed immense spiritual powers that could build or destroy their lives. He claimed that his mother-in-law, Hong, had even suggested sacrificing herself so the family could collect the insurance money to satisfy the debt and protect the family from Daphne's supposed curses. Though the defense argued passionately that Chow was highly complicit and motivated by the large insurance payout, the jury ultimately focused on the evidence of the organized plot. In September of 2019, Daphne Wright was convicted of capital murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Bobby and Willie Guillory also faced the legal consequences of their actions. Though the path to justice was long and filled with complex human emotions, the community of Arlington found solace in knowing that the truth had finally been brought to light. The memory of Long Nguyen and Hong Lee, their warmth, their dedication to their family, and their pursuit of a beautiful life remained a lasting inspiration to all who knew them, proving that even in the face of deep shadow, the light of truth and human decency will always prevail. The summer sun was just beginning to cast its golden warmth over the city of Arlington, Texas. On the morning of June 10, 2012, to anyone passing by the quiet residential streets, it seemed like the start of another peaceful Sunday. Families were waking up, the scent of fresh coffee drifted through open windows, and the gentle hum of morning traffic whispered in the distance. Yet, beneath this calm exterior, a deep sense of unease was quietly brewing outside one particular apartment complex. The call for help. At exactly 7:29 in the morning, the silence of the emergency dispatch center was broken by a trembling voice. A 38-year-old Vietnamese immigrant named Chow Tran was on the line. His voice, heavy with anxiety, struggled to find the right words as he requested a welfare check on his elderly in-laws. Chow Tran, can you please send someone over to check on them? I am very worried. Dispatcher, can you give me their names, sir? Chow Tran, my father-in-law's name is long. His last name is spelled Nguyen. He is 70-something right now. Dispatcher, Okay, sir, we are processing a request. Is there any reason you believe something is wrong? Chow Tran. Oh my God. You know what? My son and my wife. They said they're looking over there right now. They say that they saw everything falling down inside. The dispatcher assured Chow that officers were on their way. Chow had initially sent his teenage son to knock on the front door. The young man had knocked repeatedly, his heart beating faster with each unanswered thud. There was no response. As more family members began to gather outside the apartment, their collective worry deepened into a tangible dread. They noticed that a window of the residence was slightly open and the blinds were askew. Too terrified to step inside themselves, they stood together on the pavement, waiting anxiously for the police to arrive. The first officer on the scene. Officer Weller was the first to answer the call. As a seasoned member of the local police force, he had conducted countless welfare checks. But as he pulled up to the apartment building, his instincts told him this situation was different. An unusual gathering. The sight of an entire family standing outside the apartment at such an early hour was highly unusual. Normally, welfare checks were called in by distant relatives or concerned neighbors later in the day, not by a large, frightened group gathering at dawn. The front door was unlocked. Taking a deep breath, Officer Weller entered the apartment. The interior was in complete disarray, displaying all the classic signs of a burglary. Drawers were pulled out, belongings were scattered across the floor, and furniture was displaced. Officer Weller. I called out into quiet rooms, hoping for a voice to answer, but there was only silence. I checked the living room, the kitchen, and the bathroom. Everything was empty. The discovery in the closet. There was only one room left to check, the master bedroom. Officer Weller stepped inside, his flashlight beam cutting through the dimness. At first glance, he did not see anyone. The room was messy, but there was no immediate sign of life. He was about to turn around, thinking the elderly couple might have simply gone out for an early morning walk, when something caught his eye. On the wall next to a very small closet, there were dark hand smudges. A sudden hesitation washed over him. Every instinct warned him of what might lie behind that door, yet his duty compelled him forward. He reached out, grasped the handle, and pulled the closet door open. Inside the cramped space lay the elderly husband and wife, Long Nguyen and Hong Lu. They had been bound with duct tape, their heads and mouths heavily wrapped. It was immediately clear that they had passed away. The sheer scale of the tragedy left Officer Weller in a state of absolute shock. With 14 years of experience on the force, this was the most devastating scene he had ever encountered. He walked out of the bedroom into the living room, unable to speak or even use his radio immediately. He stood there for a long moment, gathering his composure, before finally calling for his supervisor and the crime scene investigation unit. Unraveling the scene. When the Arlington homicide investigators arrived, they were equally shaken. Detective Stewart, a veteran with 21 years in the homicide division, noted that this was one of the most intense cases of his career. ++. Crime scene observations. ++. Traces of struggle near the front entrance carpet. Scattered compact discs and overturned living room items. Crushed prescription pills on the coffee table. A discarded marijuana cigarette. A blue bandana wrapped tightly around a beer bottle. ++. Staged evidence. Initially, the evidence seemed to point directly to a local gang. The light blue bandana wrapped around the beer bottle resembled a known calling card for certain active groups in the area. However, Detective Stewart felt a lingering skepticism. The scene appeared almost too perfectly arranged, as if someone had gone out of their way to create a specific narrative. Detective Stewart, sometimes when a scene looks like a perfect textbook robbery, it means someone is trying very hard to make us look the other way. We began to suspect that the gang elements were deliberately staged. The legacy of Long and Hong. To understand why anyone would target this gentle couple, Investigators looked into their history. Long Nguyen and Hong Lu had immigrated to the United States from Vietnam in the year 2000. Like many families who arrived after the fall of Saigon, they sought a peaceful life and a bright future for their 3 children and grandchildren in Arlington, a city known for its vibrant and supportive Vietnamese community. The rise and fall of the sewing business. Upon arriving in Texas, Long and Hong established a commercial sewing business. They enlisted the help of their son-in-law, Chow Tran, who spoke fluent English, to act as the public face of the company. Chow managed contracts and communicated with clients, helping the business secure lucrative agreements, including work for major entertainment brands like Disney. By the year 2011, however, their fortune began to shift. They lost their primary contracts, and the family business entered a severe financial decline. Seeking a spiritual remedy, faced with mounting debts and the fear of bankruptcy, the family turned to traditional beliefs. In many Eastern cultures, when a household faces continuous misfortune, it is common to consult a spiritual advisor to perform rituals designed to lift curses and restore positive energy. Searching through a local Vietnamese newspaper, Chow Tran and his mother-in-law, Hong Le, found an advertisement for a spiritual advisor located 250 miles away in Houston. The advisor, a woman named Daphne Wright, claimed she possessed the ability to remove negative curses and attract good fortune. Desperate to save their business, Chow contacted Daphne and drove to her Houston home for a consultation. Daphne performed a ritual, filling the family with a renewed sense of hope. Unfortunately, this spiritual connection would mark the beginning of a much darker path. The investigation deepens. Following the autopsy at the Tarrant County Medical Examiner's office, detectives learned a heartbreaking detail. The primary cause of death was suffocation due to the immense amount of duct tape wrapped around the victims' faces. This level of violence suggested a deeply personal motive rather than a random robbery. A surprising financial discovery. A breakthrough came when Detective Stewart received a call from an insurance company. It was revealed that Long and Hong carried a substantial life insurance policy worth at least $1 million. When detectives inquired about the beneficiaries, they discovered that Chow Tran was named to receive a major portion of the funds. When questioned about the policy, Chow was cooperative and provided a logical explanation. He explained that since the commercial sewing business was registered in his in-laws' names, the family wanted to ensure they had the financial stability to maintain the business and support the grandchildren if anything were to happen to the elders. Furthermore, Chow and his family members provided airtight alibis for the night of the tragedy, explaining that they had been celebrating Long's birthday at a family gathering until late in the evening. The cold case years. For a long time, the investigation hit a wall. Police collected DNA samples and fingerprints from dozens of people, including family members, neighbors, and business associates. The DNA recovered from a marijuana cigarette left at the scene did not match anyone in the national database, because the database did not contain profiles of minors or individuals without prior felony convictions. The trail went cold. For more than 2 entire years, there was no progress. The family tried to move on. The sewing business closed its doors, and the community wondered if justice would ever be served. The break in the case. The turning point arrived unexpectedly on October 12, 2015, more than 3 years after the tragedy. A curious arrest. A young man named Willie Guillory was arrested in Houston for a felony involving the theft of a horse, because a felony conviction requires the collection of a DNA sample for the national database. Willie's profile was uploaded. Almost immediately, the system flagged a perfect match. Willie's DNA matched the genetic material left on the marijuana cigarette at the Arlington crime scene from 2012. At the time of the murders, Willie had been only 16 years old. which explained why his profile had not previously appeared in the system. On October 17, 2015, investigators brought Willie in for questioning. When presented with the scientific evidence linking him to the apartment, the young man broke down in tears and confessed. "Willie Guillory, I was there and I helped, but I did not do this alone. It was my uncle, Bobby Guillory, who took me there." Willie explained that his uncle, Bobby, had instructed him to help stage the apartment to look like a gang-related burglary. They had brought the blue bandana, the beer bottle, the crushed pills, and the marijuana to mislead the police. Most importantly, Willie revealed that they had been hired to carry out the act by a woman named Daphne Wright, the spiritual advisor's true face. Following Willie's confession, police moved quickly to arrest 52-year-old Bobby Guillory at his home in Katy, Texas. On December 16, 2015, Bobby's confession. Confronted with the search warrants in his nephew's statement, Bobby also confessed. He explained that in 2012, he had been unemployed, desperate, and struggling to survive. Daphne Wright had approached him with an offer of $10,000 to carry out the deed. According to Bobby, Daphne operated less like a spiritual healer and more like a financial predator. Plus, the accumulation of debt. Plus, original spiritual consultations and minor rituals. Additional fees for complex curse-lifting ceremonies. Services provided on credit over several months. Total accumulated debt, $250,000 to $280,000. Plus, when the family was unable to pay this massive sum, Daphne became demanding. Knowing about the substantial life insurance policies held by the family, she allegedly devised a plan to collect the debt through the insurance payout. The key to the apartment. When investigators asked Bobby how he had gained access to the apartment without forcing the lock, Bobby dropped a bombshell. He asserted that Daphne had given him a physical key to the residence. When investigators asked where Daphne had obtained the key, Bobby claimed she had received it directly from Chow Tran. The trial and the search for peace. With this critical information, detectives secured an arrest warrant for Daphne Wright at her Houston home. During a search of her residence, investigators discovered detailed financial ledgers. These documents revealed that Daphne had been charging clients tens of thousands of dollars for various spiritual services, confirming her highly lucrative and controlling operation. A complex legal path. To secure a conviction against the primary organizer of the crime, prosecutors faced a difficult decision. They needed a direct witness to connect Daphne to the financial transactions and the key. Consequently, the state offered Chow Tran immunity from prosecution in exchange for his full, truthful testimony against Daphne, Bobby, and Willie. During the trial in August of 2019, Chow took the stand. He portrayed Daphne as an incredibly manipulative figure who exercised intense psychological control over his family, leading them to believe that failing to pay her would result in severe spiritual ruin. While the defense argued that Chow was motivated primarily by the insurance payout of $850,000, the jury ultimately focused on the actions of conspirators. The verdict and legacy. In September 2019, the jury found Daphne Wright guilty of capital murder. She received a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. Both Bobby and Willie Guillory were also held accountable for their roles in the tragedy. Though the legal process was long and filled with complex details, the memory of Long Nguyen and Hong remains cherished by those who knew them. Their journey to America was defined by hard work, devotion to family, and a deep respect for their cultural heritage. The story serves as a gentle reminder of the importance of community support, the need to protect vulnerable loved ones, and the enduring hope that truth and justice will always find a way to light the path forward. The summer sun of Texas has a way of stretching across the horizon like a sheet of hammered gold, casting long amber shadows over the quiet suburban pockets of Arlington, It was the morning of June 10th in the year 2012, a Sunday that began with the gentle hum of cicadas and the faint scent of damp grass. For the officers of the Arlington Police Department, the day promised the usual quiet routine of weekend patrols. But for Detective Stewart, a veteran of 21 years in the Homicide Division, and his colleagues, this particular morning would forever be etched in their memories as a turning point, a profound reminder of how easily the brightest dreams could be shadowed by human frailty. The call came into the Emergency Dispatch Center at precisely 7:29 in the morning. A voice, trembling with anxiety that transcended language barriers, identified himself as Chow Tran, a 38-year-old immigrant who had come to the United States in search of a peaceful life. He was calling to request a welfare check on his elderly in-laws, Long Nguyen and Hong Lu. His voice was a tight knot of worry as he explained to the dispatcher that his teenage son and other family members had gone to the apartment to check on the couple, only to find the residence silent, the windows strangely open, and an unsettling air of disarray clinging to the home. When Officer Weller arrived at the scene, he found the family gathered outside the apartment complex. There was an unnatural stillness in the air. Welfare checks were common, but they rarely occurred so early in the morning, and it was rarer still to find an entire family waiting on the pavement, too terrified to step inside. The open window, the quiet breeze rustling the curtains, and the heavy silence from within painted a picture that instantly set the officer on high alert. Upon crossing the threshold, the physical signs of disturbance were immediately apparent. The living room was in disarray, with compact discs scattered across the floor and furniture shifted from its usual place. Mimicking the aftermath of a chaotic burglary, Officer Weller called out, his voice echoing through the small apartment, but only silence answered him. He moved through the kitchen and the bathroom, finding them empty. Finally, he approached the master bedroom. At first glance, the bedroom appeared vacant, and a temporary wave of relief washed over the officer. He reasoned that perhaps the elderly couple had simply gone for an early morning walk, escaping the heat of the day. But as he turned to leave, his flashlight beam caught something unusual. Near a small closet door, there were faint hand smudges on the wall, as if someone had reached out in a moment of desperate struggle. Following his instincts, Officer Weller hesitated. A quiet voice inside told him to prepare for the worst. He gently pulled open the closet door, and the scene that lay before him was one of profound sadness. There, bound together, were the elderly mother and father. They had been bound with heavy duct tape, their faces covered, silent and still. It was clear in an instant that their lives had been tragically cut short. The shock was immediate for an officer with 14 years of experience, and for Detective Stewart with over 2 decades in homicide. The sheer weight of the scene was overwhelming. This was not merely a robbery. It was a deeply personal and violent act. The initial investigation revealed that the victims had suffered blunt force trauma, possibly from a heavy tool. But the ultimate cause of their passing was the suffocating confinement of the tape itself. It was a tragedy that defied comprehension. Who would wish harm upon an elderly, gentle couple who had spent their lives working quietly and building a family? Long Nguyen and Hong Lu had immigrated to the United States from Vietnam in the year 2000. Like many before them, they came with hearts full of hope and a desire to build a legacy for their 3 children and many grandchildren. They settled in Arlington, a vibrant city in Tarrant County known for its diverse and welcoming community, including a large and active Vietnamese population that had flourished since the late 20th century. The couple established a commercial sewing business, utilizing their traditional skills to manufacture garments. They enlisted the help of their son-in-law, Chow Tran, who spoke fluent English and became the public face of the enterprise, dealing with contractors and securing prominent clients. For nearly a decade, their dedication paid off, culminating in a lucrative contract with a major commercial giant. a milestone that felt like the absolute realization of their American dream. However, by the year 2011, the tide of fortune began to turn. The major contract was lost, and the sewing business struggled to stay afloat. In moments of deep financial distress, people often reach back to the ancient traditions of their homeland, seeking comfort and answers in the spiritual realm. For generations, many cultures have believed in spiritual guides who can offer protection, lift perceived curses, and restore harmony to a household. Desperate to save the family business and protect their loved ones from what they believed was a streak of spiritual bad luck, Chao Tran and his mother-in-law, Hong Lu, searched a local Vietnamese newspaper. There, they found an advertisement for a spiritual advisor located in Houston, nearly 250 miles away. The advisor, a woman named Daphne Wright, claimed she possessed the power to lift heavy curses and bring prosperity to those in need. Hoping for a miracle, the family reached out to her. Daphne agreed to perform rituals designed to turn their fortunes around. The family felt a temporary surge of hope, believing that their dedication to these ancient traditions would surely guide them back to prosperity. But as the months passed, the business did not recover. Instead of finding financial relief, the family found themselves trapped in a different kind of burden. Unknown to many, the spiritual services came at an extraordinary cost. Daphne Wright began to charge astronomical fees for her rituals, extending credit to the family as their desperation grew. Over the course of a year, the debt ballooned to an incredible sum, somewhere between $250,000 and $280,000. The weight of this secret debt pressed heavily on the family, creating a quiet desperation behind the closed doors of their suburban home. At the crime scene, detectives discovered several peculiar items that seemed designed to lead them down a specific path. A blue bandana was found wrapped around a beer bottle, and a partially burned hand-rolled cigarette lay on the table alongside crushed pills. To a casual observer, these items suggested the involvement of local street gangs, which were known to operate in certain areas. But to the seasoned eyes of Detective Stewart, the scene felt almost too orchestrated, as if someone had deliberately placed these items to stage a burglary and divert attention. As the investigation progressed, detectives began to look closely at the financial aspect of the family. They discovered that there were substantial life insurance policies in place, totaling at least $1 million, with Chao Tran named as a beneficiary. While Chao cooperated fully with the police and provided a solid alibi for the night of the tragedy, explaining that the entire family had been celebrating his father-in-law's birthday until late in the evening, the presence of such a significant financial motive kept detectives watchful. For more than 2 years, the case grew quiet. Investigators followed every lead, interviewing dozens of neighbors, family members, and business associates. But the genetic evidence recovered from a hand-rolled cigarette did not match any profiles in the national database. In the year 2012, the science of genetic matching was advanced, but it relied on existing profiles of individuals who had prior felony convictions. The breakthrough came unexpectedly in the autumn of the year 2015. A young man named Willie Guillory was arrested in Houston on an unrelated felony charge involving the theft of a horse, because he had reached adulthood and was now convicted of felony. His genetic profile was entered into the combined DNA index system for the first time. Within days, a match was flagged. The genetic material on the cigarette left at the Arlington crime scene years prior belonged to Willie Guillory, who had been only 16 years old at the time of the tragedy. When detectives brought Willie in for questioning, the young man was quickly overwhelmed by the reality of the evidence. He broke down and confessed, explaining that he had not acted alone. He had been led to Arlington by his uncle, Bobby Guillory, a middle-aged man who was struggling financially and looking for a way to escape poverty. According to Willie, the entire plan had been orchestrated by Daphne Wright, the spiritual advisor. Daphne had allegedly approached Bobby, offering him $10,000 to carry out a dark deed to resolve a debt that she claimed was owed to her. She had provided them with a key to the apartment, allowing them to enter and stage the scene to look like a random gang incident. The arrest of Bobby Guillory shortly thereafter confirmed Willie's account. Bobby confessed to his involvement, expressing deep remorse and fear. He painted a picture of Daphne Wright as a highly commanding figure who ruled her household and her clients with absolute authority. To her followers, she was a person of immense spiritual power, capable of dictating their fortunes and their lives. When search warrants were executed at Daphne's home in Houston, detectives discovered detailed ledger books. These books revealed that she had been charging clients tens of thousands of dollars for spiritual services, including the removal of curses. The scale of the operation was staggering, showing how easily vulnerable individuals could be drawn into a web of financial exploitation under the guise of ancient mysticism. The investigation eventually revealed a deeply complex dynamic between Chow Tran, his late mother-in-law, and Daphne. Under questioning, Chow explained the intense psychological hold he believed Daphne had over their family. He claimed they were terrified of her perceived spiritual powers, believing that if she could lift a curse, she could just as easily place a devastating one upon them. In their desperation, they felt trapped, believing that the only way to satisfy the debt and protect the rest of the family was through extreme sacrifice. To secure a conviction against the individual they believed was the true mastermind behind the tragedy, prosecutors made a difficult decision to offer Chow Tran immunity in exchange for his full and honest testimony. During the trial in the year 2019, Chow testified extensively about the financial demands made by Daphne and the intense pressure his family experienced. The defense argued that Chow was far more involved than he admitted, suggesting that the motive was purely financial and that he had used the spiritual narrative to shield himself. The jury, after carefully weighing the extensive evidence, found Daphne Wright guilty of capital murder, sentencing her to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Bobby and Willie Guillory also faced justice for their roles in conspiracy. For the community of Arlington and the family of Long Nguyen and Hong Le, the journey through the legal system brought a quiet resolution, though the memory of the gentle couple remained a poignant reminder of the importance of community, support, clear communication, and the dangers of allowing desperation to cloud one's judgment. The story, while born of a dark moment, ultimately highlighted the tireless dedication of the investigators who spent years pursuing the truth, ensuring